What? That's the wrong music. That's the music I want. Happy Friday, everybody. All right, happy Friday. I don't know how that other music got in there. Technical difficulties already, and we're just starting the stream. It's going to be one of those kind of afternoons. Welcome to my Friday afternoon live stream, everybody, where I get to talk to you fine people about all matters finance, everything going on in the world. And, you know, I hate to say it, but the biggest story in finance is still this circus in Washington. And the circus got even circusier, even more clowns showed up to the circus today than usual. Where to begin? We had Jerome Powell made a speech today. He was at this financial conference named for this Fed economist who passed away in 2020. His name escapes me. I guess it's a bad thing. But Powell came out and he basically said, hey, we've tightened enough for the time being. We're starting to be a little bit worried about maybe some of the damage that we've already done. And they came out and said that, you know, we're going to leave things restrictive for a little while, see where they're at. And because credit standards are starting to get tighter, banks are starting to dry up their lending, maybe we can sit and wait. And so the market interpreted that correctly as Jerome Powell saying, we're going to pause here. And the likelihood of another rate hike in June went down. We actually saw the DXY, the US dollar index, started to fall on that news, which would mean a less aggressive Fed. You would see the dollar weaken on that news. And a few minutes after that comment was made, the GOP delegation that was negotiating the debt ceiling just got up and walked out. Nobody really knows why. You know, they're saying, oh, the Democrats are being unreasonable. Okay, well, what was the specific unreasonability that the Democrats were, or unreasonableness that the Democrats were saying? They wouldn't say. I'll be honest with you, this strikes me as stupid scripted political theater that are just like, all right, guys, it's Friday afternoon. This is the point where we all get up and we all walk out as part of a negotiating stalling tactic. And, you know, I was kind of arguing yesterday, or in my live stream, I was in disbelief over this like one paragraph article on CNBC about how Speaker McCarthy was optimistic about a deal. That was it. That was the whole story. It was just Speaker McCarthy's optimistic about the deal. No comments about, oh, you know, we finally got over this hurdle and we've come to an agreement. This side gave up this side gave up this, and we've reached an agreement and we're on to the next bullet point. No, it was just that stupid statement, that smiling gesture. Yeah, I think we'll get it done. Of course, there was nothing behind it. And then today, they just got up and they said the other guys are being unreasonable. Again, no data, no supporting nothing. Just get up and walk out. Scripted kabuki theater. That's all it is. And, you know, people's lives hang in the balance here, guys. I mean, look, I am very much a hawk. I am very much in favor of sound money and living within your means, living beneath your means even, so that you can reinvest some of that means into growing your means, so you can raise your standard of living by growing your means instead of raising your standard of living by mortgaging your future or stealing from your kids, which is what this whole country, this whole world does. We steal from the future for our own benefit. We are the worst generations this planet has ever seen. We are. It's time to face facts, folks. That's how we operate. That's at our future expense. So, I mean, I tend to fall on the let's cut spending, let's crank down on the spending cuts. But I can look at what Republicans are doing right now and say, this is stupid. This is just absolutely stupid. They just got up. And, you know, Kevin McCarthy barely got the speakership. Let's recall that other circus that happened. What was that, back in January, when it took like 11 or 13 votes for him to even get the nod to be the Speaker of the House within his own party, right? This guy could not run a negotiation within his own party, and now he is representing half of the country in this debt ceiling negotiation. I'm telling you guys, I've been saying it for a while. The likelihood of a political accident here is so high. It's so high. I mean, look, they're probably still going to get it done. I get it. They're going to get it done, you know. But it's not certain. It's not carved in stone. They'll probably get it done. But let me ask you this. Is your house going to burn down today? Probably not. Do you have smoke detectors? Do you have a fire extinguisher? Probably. Why? Because there's a very high consequence of the house catching fire. And so you take certain precautions. And, you know, look, guys, I don't want to be, I'm always I call myself a perma bear. I wear it on my sleeve. Perma bear. It's right there. Invisible ink. You can't see it. I get it. I don't really do the most optimistic analysis on this channel. All right. I try not to do the stupid clickbaity headlines, and I try not to be too over the top doom and gloom. I like to think I support my position with a lot of data. Other people look at the same data and draw different conclusions, but I don't just come up and make empty sky is falling comments. I back it up with numbers. And let's just say there is a non-zero chance that this thing blows up, that they get this wrong, and that there is a default. And I don't think it's doomy and gloomy to say that the electronic end of the system will probably stop working if that happens, which means if the debt ceiling goes, if it pops, if U.S. Treasuries default, I can't really guarantee, nobody can guarantee anything in that scenario. That's unusual. But under those circumstances, the cards stop working, folks. You need to understand that. The cards, we're in a virtually cashless society. It's very rare to pay with cash these days. I pay in cash for almost nothing. I like my credit card points. Cash is expensive. You know, ATMs charge you fees and transfers to get your cash. So I transact in cash as little as possible, but I still hold some cash because it's an insurance policy. So I don't want to I'm not going to sit here and say, run out and drain your bank account and put all your money under your mattress, right? That's not what we're doing here. But under that scenario where if it pops, if they don't raise the debt ceiling, or if the bank failures spin out of control, either way, and the cards stop working, you go to swipe and the system is down, or you go to the store and there's a sign on the store that says card machines not working, cash only, make sure that does not rule you out. Because right now, the only thing standing between the rest of us and financial oblivion is these stooges in DC. These I don't want to curse. I don't want to get my channel in trouble by telling you what I really think of these people in DC, folks. But Kevin McCarthy and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and these people don't know what the heck they're doing, guys. They're incompetent schmucks. I mean, they're just these front men who are trotted out to make these silly speeches in this show, in this theater, and they can't even get that right. This guy can't even walk across the lawn. Have you seen the way he walks? He looks like he's going to fall on his face every step he takes. And my Kevin McCarthy is even worse. He can't even get two Republicans to agree on something. How is he going to get a Republican and a Democrat to agree on something? And Kamala Harris is off giving speeches about being present in the presently, so that we can all be present in the context of the presence to do the work that needs to be done so that we can say the work is done. These are the people who are running the country, folks. So I don't have very much confidence in their ability to get things done on our behalf. And so I am taking precautions to protect myself and my family. I urge you to do the same. All right, that's the end of my rant. Man, I went a little hard. I'm going to bring in my man Mish here. Let's say hi to Mish the Mod. Mish, how we doing today?
I'm doing good. I think you're right on that they're playing with fire and that they don't understand fire yet. So they'll have this miraculous breakthrough here in the next couple of days, and everybody gets their wins and their licks, and we move on. But then we now have this backup of bonds that's going to go into town, and it's almost the same effect, right?
Yeah.
You do have a super chat also.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring in the super chat. Put a pin in that. The thing about what comes after the debt ceiling. We talked about that in a video yesterday. That's the one nobody sees coming. Although people are starting to cover it. I saw Stephen Van Meter covered that last night too.
Yeah.
He did a good video.
He posted about 3 hours after you.
I beat Stephen by 3 hours. I love your channel, Stephen. I really like to watch Stephen Van Meters. And when I get out in front of these guys, it's one of the benefits of doing your own editing is you're able to get it done quicker because I don't have to send it off and then do drafts and everything. I can do my own editing. I get it done faster, but doing your own editing sucks. It's a labor of love, guys. Just put it that way. HP Lovecraft, thank you, sir, very much for the support of the channel. He says, good afternoon and rest in peace, Disney Star Wars prison experience. Are you a fan of Lucas's THX 1138? The government finally runs out of money and stops chasing the hero. Go ahead.
Spoken THX 1138.
What about that?
So that's the way it's not 1138, it's THX 1138 because it's a name of the main character.
Oh, okay.
And what happens is he goes on the run. It's like the one where you went through the carousel and went up the Logan's Run. It was like Logan's Run kind of, So this guy takes off, and the government runs out of money, and they have to stop the pursuit. And that's kind of what he's alluding to right there.
I like that. And I know THX 1138 was Lucas's first. Was that his first movie or his second?
Yep, that's actually what coined the THX 1138 sound system.
And then 1138, was it Cell Block 1138? Is that where they kept Princess Leia in the first Death Star? I know 1138 also made an appearance in Star Wars. My Lucasfilm lore is a little rusty this morning, but great references. All right, a man after my own heart there, H.P. Lovecraft. Very good. And speaking of Star Wars prison, I don't want to get into the Disney Star Wars, the Disney Florida thing. That's just political minefield. That's like get your channel banned automatically by covering that. But Disney just shut down their, what is it? It was like the Star Cruiser Hotel. They spent $2 billion to build this hotel. It ran for 1 year, and they're shutting it down already. And I tell you, congratulations, Disney. They belong in the Guinness Book of World Records because they have figured out how to lose money with Star Wars. Bro, like, how do you do that? You take the single most valuable IP of all time, freaking Star Wars, right? I mean, Mel Brooks made fun of that with Star Wars The Flamethrower. The kids love it in Spaceballs, right? Merchandising. It's all about merchandising. And then, you know, Elon Musk lampooned Mel Brooks lampooning Star Wars when Elon Musk was like, yeah, I'm going to make a flamethrower. I bet you I could sell it out. And sure enough, Elon Musk sold out his flamethrower. Remember that story from like 10 years ago? I mean, that's all a joke about like certain people, certain IPs, no matter what they do, they're going to make money on it. These guys just have the Midas touch. Well, Disney, congratulations on the anti-Midas touch. You have figured out how to lose money with Star Wars. And guys, I'm telling you, if you could be in this room right now, I'm not going to shift my camera view. It'll take me forever to get it back. But Darth is not the only Star Wars merchandise in this room. I have got volumes and volumes of the Star Wars expanded universe, what's now known as Star Wars Legends, because I spent my whole childhood reading Star Wars novels that are now non-canon. They just wiped out my whole childhood. Thanks for that one, Disney. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that was nuts when they did that.
Oh, I've got toys in their original packaging. I've got board games up on my shelf. I mean, I am surrounded by Star Wars memorabilia. I'm an out-of-the-closet nerd. My first videos were made down in the theater in my basement, standing in front of my vintage Star Wars poster, right? I'm a Star Wars guy. Like, I'm in it. But, like, I don't even recognize Star Wars anymore. It's so bad. Andor was good. And Mandalorian was good. I'll put that. But, oh, my God. This whole plot line in The Last Jedi that was all about, we just threw in this plot line that did nothing to advance the story, but we wanted to provide a commentary on the military-industrial complex. So here's this whole, like, half hour of The Last Jedi that's just pointless. And they wonder why we hated that movie. They wonder why people don't make movies anymore. When you start with a political position and then you build a story around it, your movie's going to suck. Tell a story, guys. Get off your soapbox and tell a story. And I'm going to take my own advice, and I'm going to move on from this topic. But thank you very much, H.P. Lovecraft. I appreciate the super chat and the support of the channel. And, well, Mish, we were talking about what comes next. I did that video yesterday.
You want to clear the next super chat real quick and then move on?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Mike, what's going on, Mike? He says, care to comment on Fetterman and his hoodie speech? All right. Well, we had this conversation on Twitter earlier today. Let me just say that, and I say this with a large helping of shame, John Fetterman is my senator. I did not vote for John Fetterman. I held my nose and voted for the other guy. The other guy who was just the most awful candidate my side has ever produced. He was just unlikable. Like, nobody liked him. Nobody voted for him. People just voted against John Fetterman. Why? Because John Fetterman's a freaking vegetable, guys. Okay, he went through a stroke. I'm very sorry, and I wish you a speedy recovery, John. No, nothing personal against you. All right? But this is the United States Senate. This is not the fourth quarter of a game in the middle of the season when you're down by 30 and it's time to make sure everybody has played, so you put in Jack and the other bench warmers. That was me, like, my junior year of high school. Like, oh, we're down by 30. Can I play for a few minutes, coach? That's when I finally got some playing time in basketball, right? But you don't do that in the finals when you're down by 1. That's not the time to make sure everyone has played, all right? You put in your best players in the finals when the game is on the line, all right? And we wish John Fetterman a speedy recovery, but a United States Senator needs to be a functional adult. He needs to be in possession of his mental faculties. He needs to be able to put a sentence together, and for Christ's sake, put on a tie. You're a senator. All right. I'm all for business casual. I'm all for casual Fridays. Look, no collar. Oh, the t-shirt. All right. I'm not a guy for fancy dress. That's not how I roll. But I'm not a United States senator. Take the hoodie off. What are we doing? Look at the people we have put in positions of authority. I'm getting more political than I want to, but guys, I am going to give an equal helping to both sides here. All right. John Fetterman has no business holding public office right now. That man is not a functional adult. Dianne Feinstein is a vegetable in a wheelchair, and they're lying about her mental condition. My God, have you seen what Dianne Feinstein looks like? These
Do you
people
know the
shouldn't be
political
there.
battle going on with that?
What, the
On
governor will
Weinstein's
appoint
chair?
somebody even worse? Like,
No. There's the governor wants someone, and Pelosi wants someone, and they're at odds. So Diane has agreed to stay on, so Newsom can appoint his person.
and we've got the same thing going on in New York with this Santos guy who lied about everything on his resume. I mean, he's arguably the biggest dirtbag to occupy the office of congressman, and man, that is not a bold statement, right? Talk about a crown you don't ever want to wear. The biggest dirtbag in Congress. This Republican from New York, Santos, who lied about everything on his resume, and he's still in Congress. Why? Because, well, if he does what everybody would agree he should do, is quit because he's a lying sack of excrement, well, then Katie Hochul, the Democrat governor of New York, will appoint his replacement. And the Republicans only have a 5-man majority, and one of those 5 men is this lying sack of excrement, Santos. Guys, we need higher standards here. We need higher. Just voting for your side because you hate the other guy is not good enough. That's how we got in this. We need to start voting for somebody. And hey, parties, primary people, we need somebody that people can vote for a change instead of just voting for McCain because you didn't like Obama, or just voting for Hillary because you hated Trump, or just voting for Biden because you hated Trump. We need to vote for somebody, not against the other guy. Otherwise, we're always going to get this lesser of two evils, these pointless people. And, guys, this is done to us on purpose. This is they. They keep us arguing between left and right. They are both of them. They, the bankers that run the country, they fund both parties. They finance both sides. They suppress any hope of a third party. Never has a chance. I mean, I always joke around, if you want to see a hilarious fight, put 3 libertarians in a room and ask them to define what a libertarian is, and then just slam the door and back up and observe, like listen through a two-way mirror. It'd be hilarious because
Me and
libertarians
Jack argue
like,
about it.
yeah. Oh. A libertarian, in my opinion, is like a Republican who just likes to punch himself in the stomach. I know a libertarian's like, no, that's not what it is. That's not what it is. I get it. Somewhere in the middle. But all right. But yeah, that's my commentary on Fetterman and his hoodie. It's embarrassing, and I'm from Fetterman State, and I am embarrassed on behalf of the country and the state and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and all that good stuff. And thank you, Mike, and thank you the Polarin message. Thank you, Polarin message. Appreciate that. He says, "Is it true that Biden has halted cash withdrawals?" No, that is not true to my knowledge. I have not heard that. I have not made a cash withdrawal in a couple of days, but no, I don't think that's true. I've heard proposals for limiting the movement of cash. I've heard that being whispered. I've heard some people propose certain types of capital controls, mandatory waiting periods, or limitations on withdrawals, but nothing like that has been officially floated in any capacity. But I do think capital controls is one thing they'll probably turn to at some point, especially if the banking crisis gets worse. I think they'll probably go that route, but nothing yet. Thank you, Polar Message. Do me a favor, though. If you see something to that effect, like a link or a story that's mentioning that, you can find my email on the About Me page on my channel. Definitely send me that if you see something like that, because I will crank out a video on that subject real fast, hopefully 3 hours before Stephen Van Meter does. Again, love you, Steve. Nice channel. I take it a point. I want to be first. But what is it you say, Mish? Be first, be right, be excellent. Right? Those 3 things. If you can do those 3 things, you're gonna have a really good video. All right. So I think
And if
that
you
was
do
it.
2 of the 3, it's acceptable.
Yep. Yep.
It's
being right is
big.
big.
You got to be good. You got to be quick, and you got to be right. And you need 2 of those at least. Preferably always right being one of them.
Yeah. I get them wrong though. I get plenty wrong. I mean, there's some guys in this space, some financial creators who will never admit to getting a call wrong. Just never admit to it. They'll always say, "Oh, that's not what I said," or they'll argue context or something. Or no, I mean, you get a call wrong, own it. I mean, that's how credibility works. If you're just going to sit there and be like, "I've been right all along," you're never going to have any credibility because nobody's ever right all the time. Own your screw ups. Explain why you got them wrong, and move on. Like I don't know.
I
I
got
mean,
another
I got
super
wrong.
chat.
I was bearish on markets. I see Nashville there. I'll get it. I've been bearish on markets besides forever. I've been very bearish on markets since the beginning of the year because I look at the empirical data. What was I wrong about? I was wrong about how quickly the Fed would return to providing liquidity through the Bank Term Funding Program. I was quick to believe that our regulators would follow the law in Dodd-Frank and that they would bail in the banks and that the uninsured depositors would be wiped out above 250,000 or have equity. I underestimated how quickly they would set aside the law. And that's what made me wrong about being bearish on the indexes up until this point this year. I underestimated what scumbags our leaders were. That's where I got it wrong. So you got to own those. That's how credibility works. Otherwise, if you just sit there and you do things like, the president talking about how my economic plan is working and we eliminated $1.7 trillion from the deficit. No, that's not how credibility works. You did not. No, 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 no. Sorry, guys. All right. Thank you, Polar and Message, though. I appreciate that. And thank you very much, Nashville Pasta Man. He says, "Hey, Jack, Target isn't losing customers because of economics. It's because they became political. People are choosing to spend money elsewhere." I'm sure that's playing a role in it. I think politics is playing a role, but that doesn't mean Walmart is like this, this bastion of conservative values by any means. There is pushback against companies that are getting too political. I'll tell you that works both ways. Companies that become too conservative get pushback. Look at what happened to My Pillow, for example, right? I mean, that happens. Companies that go too woke, they're getting pushback. All right. So the lesson I think companies need to take is do not drift from the center politically just do business. Shut up about politics and do business. Get back in the middle where you belong, where most of us live. All right. If you cater to the wackos on the right, or if you cater to the wackos on the left, don't expect to lose business. Expect to lose money. That should be bad business. All right. So I would say get back in the middle where you belong. So that is happening to the right and to the left. I also think, though, if you look at groceries, which is really what's driving Walmart's success, and Target has tried to mimic that, Target does poorly with that. They haven't donated or they haven't contributed enough floor space to groceries. Walmart, when you walk in the store, you're in the grocery store now in Walmart. It's the first thing you see when you're there. Target, you've got to, at least in my Target or any Target I've been in the last year, you got to make a left and you got to go all the way to the back of the store to get to the food. You've still got to go past all the apparel. You've got to go past their little dollar store thing that they're trying to do right there at the entrance. I just don't think that's going to get people in the door. So I think grocery has more to do with it. Now, I don't like the idea of buying groceries at Walmart. I know that's why people are shopping at Walmart. Um, I can tell you, I spend a lot of time analyzing my groceries and what I spend my money on, and I think the key to both your financial and your biological well-being is to spend more time in the fresh produce and the meat section at the supermarket. All right, that's where you want to live. That big L, go through the fresh produce and then the cool sections along the back. That's where health lives, and that's also the cheapest food too, right? And meat can be a little bit more expensive, but talking about buying fresh produce, fresh broccoli, apples, that kind of stuff, or buying the packaged stuff from the center aisles of the supermarket, that's where you're paying a lot more money. And when you spend money on that stuff, everything that's done to your food product, every cut, every additive, every mix, that's an energy input and a labor input, and that costs money. So when you buy this processed stuff, it's going to be more expensive than if you just buy fresh produce and you cook your own food. Now, the key to that is, number one, I buy my fresh produce in bulk, but you got to pay a lot of attention to shelf life. And that's why I don't buy food at Walmart, because the produce at Walmart, you walk in there, it's a mess. It's a show. It's an S show. I don't want to cuss. There's apples laying on the floor. The packages are open and spilling out. Stuff is ripped, and it's just you bring that stuff home and it doesn't last. It's already tainted at the store. It's just not that fresh. And Costco's even worse. My God, you walk around Costco in the fresh produce section, you're going to find mold in the stuff that's for sale. Like it's disgusting. I don't even like touching the fresh produce at Costco. It's gross. So I still like to buy bulk, cheap, fresh produce at the grocery store, and I spend more time at the produce section and in the meat section, and I save a ton of money. It also helps that I got my birds out back, and if I do have produce that goes bad, I give it to my little bio machines, and they turn it into eggs for me. So yeah, that's my spiel. I'm going to get off this one. Let's get on to the subject at hand, shall we? Thank you very much, Nashville Pasta. I appreciate that. And Van E is also here. He says, how much debt raise and how long will it last? I think that's one of the issues. That's a sticking point. I don't know why, but Republicans want this to be an election issue next year. I don't know why, because I think this is a losing issue for Republicans. Even though I tend to agree with the Republican side of this, I'm for less debt spending and more fiscal discipline. I don't think that polls well. And if Republicans want to run on the debt ceiling, they're going to lose, like they've lost every other time they've tried to run on this. I think partially because Republicans have proven that they're all talk when it comes to spending, because every time the Republicans take over, they end up spending more. So they're only really spending hawks when Democrats are in power. That's one of the reasons why they have no credibility. Now, how big a debt raise and how long will it last? That is one of the sticking points. All right. The Democrats want this out past the election. Again, I don't know why. I think that it'll help the Democrats if they make this an election issue. But that's one of the sticking points, Vanny.
Well, part of the problem is they suspended it for a while, right? This debt limit cap comes and goes, right? Depends on who's in charge, how loud people are being, right? So it comes and goes, and sometimes they just get rid of it and say, go for it. We've told you what to spend it. But so this cap, you're right. They wanted to make it an election year issue. So, and I think that's what the sticking point of the Democrat side is they want to push it out beyond the election.
Yep.
So they're giving up a couple things to try and get that further out. I think that's what's happening.
And honestly, like attempting to be neutral, it's impossible for me to really be neutral, but attempting to be neutral, if I'm a Democrat, I want this to be on the ticket in 2024. If I'm a Democrat, I would much rather be talking about the debt ceiling and the Republicans' hypocrisy on the subject rather than Kamala trying to put a sentence together or Joe Biden trying to walk off the stage. All right. I would much rather be talking about the debt ceiling than either of those issues. So the physical and psychological limitations of their candidates, I don't think they want to run on that. I think they would rather run on the Republicans are crazy on the debt ceiling. I think, speaking for the average voter, I think the average voter is more likely to identify with the Democrats on that subject. It's hard for me to admit because, like I said, I tend to fall on the other side of things. But that's a fact. 2011, the last time this really became an issue, the Republicans just got clobbered in the polls on it. They paid for it big time. It did not work out for the Republicans last time. And I don't know why they want to repeat that, but they do. I get it. It's the best thing for the country. I definitely think, we obviously have a spending problem. If you're watching this channel and you think the United States doesn't have a spending problem, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you. I'm sorry, guys. We need to be beginning from the realm of all real numbers if we're going to get anywhere here. All right. If your math has a lot of I in it, and you geeks will get this, if you're using I in your economic math, you're not going to get there. You're not grounded in reality. All right. Let's shrink my melon of a head. Let's see what's going on in the markets right now. Man, we got real political today, didn't we? You can't help it. That's why I hate this subject. That's why I hate the debt ceiling.
There's when economics meets politics, that's when things go awry. And that's where we're at.
Mildly put, they go awry. Things go to stuff, or they go awry. See that? That's why I have you here, Mish. You're more of a diplomat than I am. All right, the S&P 500 is down a paltry 5 points today, 0.13%. A little bit of bounce up and down. Really didn't do much of anything. Dow is down 109.33%, and the Nasdaq is down 32.25%. Stock's doing a whole bunch of nothing today. The DXY is down 31 basis points right now, which, all things considered, is not that bad. I want to draw your attention to one key point here. You see this big down red line here. That was Jerome Powell making his opening remarks at this conference today. And we're going to play those remarks about what Powell said, and you'll understand why we saw that big decline in the strength of the dollar. It was a I don't want to say it was pivoty. That's a loaded word, but it was definitely a more dovish Jerome than we're used to. Also, since then, I've noticed we are seeing the DXY is recovering. So the market is starting to digest that and realize Powell's remarks may actually be too little too late. And
Well, and
looking
I
over,
wonder,
go ahead.
a pause is not a pivot, right? A
Yeah.
pivot is when they start going down, because that's a very significant event economically, right? That sets off some counters.
I mean, let's talk. That's important what you just said there. A pause is not a pivot because if the Fed does nothing right now, everything will collapse. And again, I don't think that's hyperbolic. If the Fed just does nothing, if they never lower, every bank in the country will eventually become insolvent. Commercial real estate will collapse. Autos will get repossessed. Americans will file for bankruptcy in historic numbers because we cannot afford our debt based system, which is more hopelessly dependent on debt than ever before, cannot afford these interest rates. Not with the debt pile where it is. And when I talk about the debt pile, folks, the America's $31.5 trillion national debt is only a fraction of the debt pile, right? I'm also talking about our mortgages, our car loans. What was it? The average car payment in the US is somewhere around $700 right now.
777, actually.
That's a beautifully round number. And also Johnny on the spot with the data points, Mish. Impressive. You never cease to amaze me the way you crank out those data points. The guy's got a perfect memory. $777 is the average car payment for an American right now. And the thing about average is half of them are higher than that. And again, I bet you Mish has this one at least close on hand. How many people have a car payment over $1,000 a month now? It was like a third or some number like that.
34%, 36%, somewhere around there.
Roughly a third of Americans have a car payment above $1,000 a month. It's amazing. When I was in college, which was not too long ago, I had
Yes,
my
it
own
was.
apartment.
Come clean, man. It was. It was
Humor
a
me,
minute
Mish.
ago.
I'm a young man with a few good years ahead of me. Come on. Oh, I'm not that young. Well, or I was just really old when I finished college. That's also true. Jack had a lot of senior years. But my last senior year of college, and my dad, hi dad, he's over there. He's laughing to himself. He's saying, "Yup, he sure did." My last senior year of college, my apartment that I lived in by myself cost me $800 a month. And we're saying right now, 1/3 of people in this country has a car payment higher than my rent was when I was in college. It's amazing. It was not that long ago. It was less than 20 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. Guys, if you're signing up for a car payment over
In
$1,000 a month,
1995, in my first apartment with my bride was $400, one bedroom, fully furnished, all bills paid, $400.
$400 to have those numbers back, man, can you imagine? That's inflation for you. That's the slow boil of the pot. I mean, we've just been sitting here watching it happen. So this debt pile, guys, we cannot afford these interest rates. We can't. If they don't lower, the economy collapses eventually. It's a mathematical certainty. And that's why, looking right now in December, the prevailing wisdom in the markets right now is that the Fed funds rate will be 450 to 475. In other words, 2 rate cuts before the end of this year. Even though Jerome Powell has not said there will be any rate cuts this year, the market is saying, we think you're bluffing. There's going to be 2 rate cuts this year. Why? Because we can't afford not to. Commercial real estate is failing. Go check out that video I did about the San Francisco fire sale a few days ago and look at what is happening to the value of those office towers. All right. If the average office tower in America is not able to refinance, then they're going to have to sell their buildings because they can't afford these higher interest payments, and commercial loans are always rolling over. They're always being refinanced. And nobody can afford to pay the kind of prices for these buildings that they were previously fetching, not when interest rates are this high, which means the values of those buildings has to come down. And who owns those buildings? You do. You don't realize it, but you own these skyscrapers, guys. If you have money in the bank took your money and they bought those skyscrapers with them. So those skyscrapers represents your savings in the bank. A lot of our regional banks have a lot of their money in CMBS and commercial real estate loans, which means Your money was used to buy these buildings. And so if those buildings plummet in value, that means the bank no longer has your money. And that means we're going to be talking about more bank failures if the commercial real estate bubble pops. Oh, let's also talk about your pension, because who also buys a lot of this commercial real estate? Pension funds. Are you a teacher? Are you a county, state, federal worker, municipal worker? And guess what? Whether you admit it or not, or whether you realize it or not, you own a whole bunch of commercial real estate. I had a really nice gal sent me a message. I can't remember her name. Really sweet girl. She sent me this really nice worded message about, she's been watching a channel. She works for a bank and she was worried about her pension and she had no idea what was in her pension. And I gave her a couple of pointers about who she might ask and what she might call. And she sent me back some documentation that she got, and it looked like she didn't own any commercial real estate. And when we went and looked a little higher, we found there was a ton of commercial real estate hiding in her pension fund. And I forget what the instrument was called. It was something I had to look it up to figure out what it was. But hiding within these funds is nothing but commercial real estate. It is all over the place, guys. We all own it. So, interest rates. Go ahead.
This is on interest rates. Here's a little tidbit. David reminded me of it in chat, but the yearly debt payment has exceeded the defense budget.
Yeah.
At 960 to 80, I've seen a couple different numbers, billion a year. 25% of our GDP is now going towards interest.
That's amazing. Just interest. That's not paying it down. Guys, we always said, hey, we can't keep spending so much money. We can't keep growing this pile of debt because we're robbing the future. We're going to pay for this in the future. Well, we now pay more in interest on the federal debt than we pay for the United States military, which is we spend more on our military than the next 8 countries' largest militaries combined, 6 of which are allies. Guys, it is the future. Sorry. You remember we said, we're going to pay for this in the future. It's going to be so bad in the future if we don't get a handle on it. Guess what? It's the future. It's here.
If we took a 25% haircut off the top of the budget across the board and started paying back $100 billion a year, it would take us 300 years to pay off the debt.
300 years. Good God. Longer than this country has, much longer than this country has even existed just to get back to zero. And that's a 25% haircut. And what are we talking about right now? Like $130 billion in spending is on the table. That's not even what? Not even 2%.
Half of that money is COVID pullback.
Yeah.
So it's not even really cuts.
And we talked about it this morning on the live stream, the stuff that's the hang-ups, clawback unspent COVID stimulus. Of course we should do that. No, that's a sticking point. Like clear
100%.
Make it easier for permitting.
Well, the day we did, okay, it's no longer an emergency, all that money comes back. Shouldn't even be up for question.
Work requirements for able-bodied adults to collect government benefit programs. Why is that controversial? All right. If you are an able-bodied person, I want to emphasize able-bodied. I'm not talking about taking away welfare for an old lady in a wheelchair who's got arthritis and can't, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about leeches, guys, able-bodied adults who are not contributing to society, but society is contributing to them. Why is it controversial to insist that those people at least try to work, at least try to contribute back to the society that is sustaining your existence? Why is that a controversial position? Apparently it is. So, anyways, I'm getting heated today, man. Anyways, check this one out. Jesse B. Thank you very much, Jesse. He says, nothing is paying this debt off and they know it. Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. They are going to default one way or another. They're either going to inflate it away or outright default. When Nancy Felinosi sells her holdings, then you know it's over. Nancy Pelosi's stock tracker. Yeah. But Nancy gets a lot of heat. There's plenty of Republicans. If you actually follow some of those insider trading groups, there's plenty of Republicans on that list. Now, Nancy was the former speaker and a more high-profile politician, so she gets all the attention. But there is no shortage of Republican lawmakers who are walking out of classified briefings and making investments like within the hour, or their wives or brothers or best friends are making investments that end up being shockingly good investments somehow. Maybe they have access to information, non-public information, and they're investing on it. Maybe they just throw them out there. Ban on stock trading for congressmen. Another thing. Why are we even talking about this? It should obviously be the law. Why is it even up for debate? Why? Because they run everything. All right. Let's play the clip of Powell, because this is what really changed everything today. For the love of God, get me off of politics here. Sorry, guys. So here's what changed everything today. This was the Powell clip. Now, we're going to play it through a little bit, and then we'll parse words. But listen to some of the key phrases that Powell uses here, like restrictive, and he's talking about the lagging indicator, or that we had previously thought more hikes may be appropriate, as if to suggest that more hikes now are not appropriate. Here's the clip of Powell today that moved markets.
So in the current context, until recently, it's been relatively clear that further policy firming would be warranted, and our forward guidance has said so. Now, however, we've come a long way in policy tightening, and the stance of policy is restrictive, and we face uncertainty about the lagged effects of our tightening so far and about the extent of credit tightening from recent banking stresses. So today, our guidance is limited to identifying the factors we'll be monitoring as we assess the extent to which additional policy firming may be appropriate to return inflation to 2% over time. As I noted at the last press conference, that assessment will be an ongoing one as we move ahead, meeting by meeting. Having come this far, we can afford to look at the data and the evolving outlook and make careful assessments.
All right, so there was a couple of things important there that he said. They were concerned about the lagging effects of the tightening that they've already made. All right, that was Powell saying, all right, guys, 500 basis points of rate hikes. And, some people say it takes a full year for a rate hike to really make its way through the economy. And if that's the case, that means right now, these bank failures and everything we've been going through since March, that was just from the first 25 basis points a year ago. Just the first, right?
Everybody in these yearly debt cycles they're going to have to start re-upping with the higher interest.
Yep.
So that's what's really starting to hurt.
Yep. Another thing that he said is they are now at a point where they can review the extent to which additional tightening may be appropriate. That's very wishy-washy. Now, keep in mind, he's reading from a prepared statement. If you go back and watch that clip and you zoom in real close, you may notice there's actually some handwritten notes on that statement. So right up until the last minute, if there's handwritten changes to printed notes, that means he was changing what he was going to say, like right before he went live. All right, that's noteworthy. But he was very carefully parsing his words, and that they are carefully assessing the extent to which additional tightening may or may not be appropriate. That means the pause is here. All right. May be appropriate, as in it may not be appropriate. He's saying they might not raise in June. All right. That means they're paused. All right. And, they've also, what was it? He said there's something about the 2% target. They're going to be there for a while, if I had to summarize it. All right. I think a little bit of what Powell said today, he said the pause was here. That was my interpretation of it. But he did not say a rate cut was here. He didn't rule it out, but he mentioned that rate cuts were not part of his base case, or not part of their projections, like the dot plot and what the other Fed governors.
Yeah,
Nobody in the Fed is saying that.
Being restrictive, right? We finally got to restricted nature. Okay, so now he's saying all that before was play, and we just hit the brakes.
Yep.
We tapped the brakes. Now he's going to hold the brakes for a while.
Now, here's the thing. Here's the difference. All right. You cannot rectify what Powell said with this chart that's on the screen right now, with this 42% likelihood of interest rate futures saying 2 rate cuts by the end of the year. All right. So there are two prevailing thoughts here. There is Powell saying, we're not going to cut. We will sit and watch the damage be done based on what we have done with our previous hikes. We've already seen banks fail. We're already starting to see companies go bankrupt. We're starting to see real estate values come down ever so slightly. So we're not going to hike anymore, but there's no situation where they're evaluating a rate cut. Meanwhile, the market is saying 2 rate cuts. So the market is saying there's pain coming this year, and the Fed is going to lower in order to alleviate that pain. Powell is saying, I'm going to let you take the pain. Right? I don't know which one they're going to play out here, but I think Powell he's trying to send the message here. And Danielle DiMartino Booth has been very vocal about this with some of her commentary and her writings recently, that she thinks Jerome Powell is on a mission to break this belief on Wall Street that as soon as the going gets tough, the Fed will ride in and save the day with liquidity. Right? Now, if that's really what Powell's trying to do, he's doing a terrible job of it, because the second things got tough in March, what did the Fed do? They created the Bank Term Funding Program, and they started pumping liquidity into the market. They undid a full half of their quantitative tightening to date, and they pumped liquidity back in the market. So if Jerome Powell is indeed trying to break this belief that the Fed will ride to the rescue, he's doing a piss poor job of it. All right, that's Jack's take. All right, but
Yeah.
based on what Powell said today, he's saying, I'm going to let you take the pain when things get hard. We'll see if he backs it up with action. I
Hey,
don't know.
we never really talked about what happens if after they do the limit. You said we were going to go over that to hold that thought.
Yeah. So, I did this video on it, and I did a video yesterday about what is Janet Yellen going to do as soon as the limit gets raised. Well, if you're the Secretary of the Treasury and you have to pay the bills and you're finally allowed to borrow money again, what are you going to do? You're going to borrow money. And this is Stephen did a video right after I did a video about it. Bloomberg was covering it yesterday. I've been talking about it on my live streams for a while. Janet Yellen is going to suck liquidity out of the bond market the moment the debt ceiling gets raised. That might actually be the crisis. All right. The debt ceiling in and of itself is a crisis. If they don't raise it, obviously that is terrible. But if they do raise it, there's a slightly less god-awful crisis right around the corner, because Yellen's going to borrow $1 trillion. And Bloomberg was talking about this. And, borrowing money is increasing the demand for dollars. And what do you do when you increase the demand for dollars? You raise the price of dollars, and the price of dollars is interest rates. So Janet Yellen dumping all this new U.S. Treasury, all these new bond supply onto the market, and borrowing all the dollars out of the market, it's going to drive the dollar higher. It's going to drive interest rates higher. And, why are we looking at bank failures right now, guys? What has caused all of these bank failures? It's been unrealized losses on U.S. Treasuries. They've lost so much money from rising interest rates, from the Fed's hiking cycle, that all of the investments that the banks bought with our money went down in value. When interest rates goes up, bond values go down. So the Fed dumps all this helicopter money into the economy. We get the money, we put it in the bank. The bank takes our money and they go buy U.S. Treasuries with them at a time when interest rates on U.S. Treasuries were practically zero. Then the Fed goes and raises rates because of the inflation. Now the value of those Treasuries has gone down, but the banks still owe us our money. Now the bank is insolvent. That's what failed Silicon Valley Bank. That's what failed Signature Bank and First Republic Bank. Now there was other factors like, First Republic made their ridiculous mortgages, no interest mortgages for mansions, right? They were risky loans, but loans go down in value when interest rates rise the same way bonds go down in value. So it's the Fed's tightening cycle. It's the lack of liquidity in bond markets, the higher interest rates. That's what's caused banks to fail. That's what's causing zombie companies to go out of business. And as soon as Janet Yellen goes to replenish the Treasury General account and borrows her $1 trillion, she's going to make those problems worse. It's going to cause interest rates to go higher, and the dollar's going to get stronger. That's going to cause more bank failures and more companies to go under. I can't say which bank for sure is going to fail, but the problem of unrealized bond losses will get worse when Janet Yellen borrows that $1 trillion. And that's what's failing banks. So if that problem gets worse, it stands to reason that more banks would fail under that scenario. And by the way, this is not an accident, guys. Look at this statement by Janet Yellen today. I mean, this blew my mind. Talk about, I think it was Joe Brown and Heresy Financial tweeted out that this is controlled demolition. This is the Federal Reserve taking over the bank system. Janet Yellen expects U.S. regulators to be open to mergers among mid-sized banks. All right. Seems like a harmless statement, but think about what we just saw. We just saw JP Morgan gobble up First Republic Bank, right? First Republic, which was failed by the Federal Reserve and then made worse by Janet Yellen and her statements about uninsured deposits. That causes First Republic to fail. And now we have these limits on how big the too big to fail banks are allowed to get. And yet JP Morgan was allowed to come in and buy First Republic Bank. Well, that violated the limits of how big JP Morgan was allowed to get, but the regulators just said, you know what, go ahead and do it anyway. We don't need to follow the law. They gave them the systemic risk exemption, which basically says, you know, as long as we rubber stamp it, we'll let too big to fail get even bigger, too bigger to fail. Which, by the way, too big to fail means too big to exist. The bank should never be allowed to get that too big. If a bank represents a systemic risk to the economy, that bank should be broken up before it fails. That's what I'd do. And Janet Yellen is saying we need to be open to more consolidation. The current banking environment and pressures on earnings of some U.S. regional banks may lead to some concentration in the sector, and regulators will likely be open to such mergers, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said on Saturday. So she wants more consolidation in the banking system. She wants fewer, bigger banks. Why does Janet Yellen want this? Because they're easier to control. Fewer, bigger banks is a lot easier to control. And remember, who owns the Federal Reserve? Oh, that's right. The big banks are the members of the Federal Reserve. They own the Federal Reserve. The big banks are the Federal Reserve. Yellen told Reuters she was not seeing evidence of pressure on smaller community banks, which had a large percentage of insured deposits. Guys, I have to read that one again because I feel like you're not taking the walk with me here. Yellen told Reuters Saturday that she was not seeing evidence of pressure on smaller community banks. What? She sees no evidence of smaller community banks. Other than the smaller community banks failing, she sees no evidence of pressure on those banks, other than they're going out of business. Their stocks are selling off 80% in a day. She expressed confidence that nearly all banks had access to sufficient liquidity to guard against unexpected deposit outflows from uninsured depositors. She sees no evidence of any trouble at America's small community banks. And don't worry, she has got her best watchdogs are on the job, making sure there is no evidence of any trouble at America's community banks. They are all over this one, folks. Nothing gets by these people. All right? They're going to nip that in the bud right before it happens. I can't believe this. Guys, they're telling you it's raining. That is not water dripping down your back. She said certain degree of consolidation in the regional and mid-sized banking sector could occur. Really? Because she just made it happen, and she declined to discuss any specific banks. This might be an environment in which we're going to see more mergers. And you know, that's something I think regulators... Oh, let me use my Yellen voice. There might be an environment in which we're going to see some mergers. And you know, that's something I think regulators will be open to if it occurs, she said in an interview on the sidelines of the meeting of finance officials from the Group of 7 rich nations. She sees no pressure on small banks coming off of the second, third, and fourth largest bank failures in United States history. Guys, you cannot write this stuff. You can't make this up. Remember what I said about credibility, about when you get one wrong, own it, and that's how you restore your credibility, not by pretending you've been right all along. Maybe a little of that, Janet. Maybe just a little. So the thing is, you need consolidation in the banks. They need consolidation in the banks. They want consolidation in the banks because if there's fewer banks for them to manage, then it's going to be easier for them to push out their CBDCs when that time comes. And that's why they're driving consolidation in the bank sector. The Fed will take over all banking eventually. You won't have an account with this bank or that bank. Everybody will just have an account at the Federal Reserve tied to your Social Security number, your digital identity, your fingerprint, your eyeball, your compliance, your social credit score, whatever you want to call it. This is a totalitarian dystopian nightmare in the making. And, well, I'm just going to call it out as I see it coming, guys. YouTube's probably going to censor me for it, but whatever.
Markets are closed if you want to run through the markets last time.
I do. Before we run through the markets, let me add one thing, guys. I saw this on my video yesterday. I saw at least 4 different comments on my video yesterday that it's not showing up in their subscriptions feed. All right. Thank you for that, by the way. If you guys are not seeing my videos show up in your feed when you go looking for it, I would like to know that. Please let me know in the comments if that is the case. 4 different people on that video yesterday said they had to go directly to my channel and search for it, and then that video came up when it should show up in their subscriptions feed. And I spent a decent amount of time with YouTube support this morning, relaying those concerns to YouTube support, who has assured me over and over again, in between hanging up on me, that they don't shadow ban, that there is no shadow ban on my channel, and that it is just a coincidence that my channel stopped growing and that my views plummeted the day after they demonetized my video that showed Chinese police beating bank protesters outside a bank in China. All right. So the message from YouTube, everybody, is that they've got their engineers looking into it, and that the problem is not that they're shadow banning, because they totally don't shadow ban. They want you to know that. I told them I'm going to pass this on to you guys. They don't shadow ban. That's just in my figment of my imagination. It's just a coincidence that this all started after my video about the Chinese bank protesters getting beaten by police in China got demonetized. And they're going to get back to me. Their engineers are going to look at why my videos are not showing up in your subscriptions feed. And when they get back to me, I will share that with you guys. So thank you for sharing your concerns. And I just want to add that these videos also go out on Twitter. All my live streams go out on Twitter. At JG_nuke is my handle on Twitter. You can also see that if you go to my on my channel About Me page. It has links to my Twitter feed. So all my content gets put out there as well. And if you don't like when the algorithm decides Jack has been a bad boy and slaps me on the wrist and hides my videos from you, then please go follow me on Twitter, where that kind of thing no longer happens. All right. I had to get that off my chest. But remember, it's just in our heads, guys. It's just a figment of our imagination. Markets are closed for the week, and S&P ended up closing basically flat, 6 points. No, down 6 points, almost no change. The Dow lost 109 points, or a third of 1%, and the Nasdaq ended up losing about 30 points, a quarter of 1%. All things considered, not a bad day. We never even touched on commodities. Gold actually did all right today on that weaker dollar. Gold went up $18 today, still under 2,000 at 1977, but it really liked that sell-off in the Dixie. It really liked the weaker dollar when Jerome Powell said that they're probably going to pause from here, no more rate hikes. Remember, gold competes with bonds, with U.S. Treasuries, because bonds yield interest rates. Gold yields nothing. Gold actually has an expense of protection to keep it safe. And so when interest rates are rising, that's generally bad for gold. Also, when interest rates rise, the dollar gets stronger. Also bad for gold because the dollar is the denominator in the pricing equation. If the denominator goes up, the value of the fraction goes down. So gold doesn't like higher rates, stronger dollar, which means gold loved today because we saw a weaker dollar today. Silver loved it too, up 35 cents or 1.5% at $23.99. Just missed that 24 handle to close out the week. And oil had oil pretty much flat today, 71.77, down 9 cents. That's about all that's going on in the world of finance today, guys. So long story short, we got no deal in the debt ceiling. We're going nowhere. Political buffoonery, amateur hour in D.C. And all I can say, like, if there's one message, guys, is don't go out and put all your life savings under your mattress. That's not me. That's not what I'm advocating or anything. All right. I'm just saying, have that fire extinguisher. Have those batteries in your smoke detector. Make sure that if these idiots who are playing with fire accidentally burn the house down, make sure you can still buy food when you go to the supermarket and there's a sign that says the card machines don't work. Make sure that doesn't rule you out, okay? Do that responsibly without setting your family back, all right? Just protect yourself, please. I don't want melon heads standing outside the bank banging on the doors because they can't buy food unless they let them in to withdraw money, all right? And that has happened in the United States before. It's been 100 years since that has happened, but it has happened. All right. And it is foolish to say it can't happen again. That is inviting disaster to say it can't happen again. Trust me. All right. This ship can't sink. This ship can't hit an iceberg. All that good stuff. All right. I got a few. Yeah, 2 supers here. Thank you very much to Knife Collector, who says you can't have a true socialistic society until people are on their knees begging for what the government is offering them, such as food. Guys, I think the problem with a socialistic society, if we were perfect beings, if we were all good, decent, kind human beings, I think we could do socialism. The problem is humans are not. We're not. Right? The average person is selfish. All right? We tell ourselves we're not selfish because we haven't really been tested. The average person just isn't nearly that altruistic. All right? And honestly, really, when's the last time you did something really totally nice and good and generous for somebody else and asked for nothing or expected nothing in return? Very few people ever do that. As a matter of fact, most of the socialists who are on Twitter screaming and ranting about, oh, libertarians never want to do their fair share for society. All right. I remember one of these guys was calling me out. I was in a Twitter argument with a socialist, talk about an exercise in futility. I don't do that anymore. But somebody's talking about how libertarians are never willing to do their part for society. They never contribute anything. They just want to drive on the roads for free and not pay their taxes. And I said, well, you know what? I answered 2 fire calls today and did 3 hours of training for no pay and no benefit whatsoever. What have you done, Mr. Socialist, for your fellow man today? Because this libertarian, as far as I can tell, has done a whole hell of a lot more than any socialist. I never met a socialist on a fire engine. I don't know about you, Mish. You ever meet a socialist on a fire engine? I sure as hell didn't. Plenty of libertarians riding around fire engines. Plenty of those selfish libertarians who don't want to do anything for the benefit of society. I've met plenty of those guys strapping an SCBA to their back, ready to run into a burning building and put their own butts on the line for nothing. Never seen a socialist willing to do that. Hey, socialists out there, America's volunteer fire companies are all hiring. Inquire within. And volunteerism is way down in America. Go figure. It's hard to find a guy to run into a burning building for nothing these days. And look it up, dude. And the stats of volunteerism as socialism and communism is becoming more and more prominent in America. Volunteerism is in decline. Those two things are not unrelated. Socialists, communists, stop demanding everybody do something for you and do something for someone else for a change. Then we can all talk about sharing. Woo! Yeah, Mish's cat is like, you tell him, Jack. You tell him, meow. Tell him right, meow. Whew. Man, I got heated there. Sorry, guys. The shortest book in the world. It's even shorter than Joe Brown's book of all the reasons why we need the Federal Reserve. Socialists I've met while riding a fire engine. All right. So, yeah, no, that's why. That's why we can't have a socialist society, because people are just too selfish. Nobody will do anything to help anyone, or very few people are legitimately altruistic. Most of them pretend to be because they just want something. And thank you, Steve. By the way, thank you, Knife Collector. I appreciate it. And man, did you get me spun up with that comment. That was funny. You got my blood up with that one. I need to bring my blood pressure way down. And Steve Woitis says, the more they shadow ban and cancel, the more value channels like NSF have. If only that was true. Well, I'll tell you, maybe I take that as positive feedback about my content. I can tell you that. But they absolutely can shut me up. I can tell you that, guys. They can shut me up. And that's another reason why I want you guys to please follow me on Twitter. Because one day, somebody like Mr. Knife Collector with his very generous super chat is going to send me on a tirade. And Mish will be unable to rein me in. And I will say something that will get this channel taken down. It's bound to happen someday, all right? Because a lot of those socialists that I just dared to ride a fire engine with me, a lot of them work at YouTube, a lot of them work at Google. And they're probably going to be pissed when they hear what I have to say. And all they have to do is click a button and bye-bye goes Jack's channel. All right, so have a backup plan. My backup plan is Twitter. I know a lot of you guys like Rumble. My stuff does go automatically over to Rumble. Rumble just doesn't work for small channels. If you're huge already and you've got a big following, you can be successful on Rumble. But Rumble has no algorithm. They have no discovery engine, so it's very hard to build on Rumble. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of it. I have tried, guys. I have put in a lot of time over there. But thank you, Steve Woitis. I appreciate the super chat, sir, and the support of the channel. And I see Captain Keebs says it will all work out. It will all work out, guys. You know, I had a saying when I was on the boat. You know, bad weather was coming and everything. I always said, guys, look, we're going to get through it one way or another. It's just a matter of how much it's going to suck along the way. Now, maybe that's just my pessimistic appraisal of the world, but that's kind of how I view every situation. Like, you know, one way or another, we'll get through it. It's just a matter of how much of the suck do we need to embrace along the road. And I do think, I say it virtually every week when I sign off, hard times are coming. They are on the way. They're not here yet. So spend some time smelling the roses, because right now we are in a bubble, guys. We are in the mother of all bubbles. Enjoy it while we're in it, because it will pop eventually. All right, it's going to. Right now, all you have to do is say AI on an earnings call, and your stock, your market cap will rally by $100 billion. It won't always be like that. Eventually, this kind of stuff comes back to earth. It comes back to reality. All right, and those are going to be hard times. So prepare for them, but at the same time, enjoy these good times while we have them. Thanks again, Captain Keebs. Thank you guys, everybody, for your super chats today. I appreciate that. And again, we're talking about the debt ceiling today. This is not a politics show. I try to avoid politics. Sometimes I just get into it. And when you're talking about the debt ceiling, which is the most important story in finance, it's impossible to avoid politics. So it's not always going to be like this. I cannot wait for this issue to be behind us. I can't wait. Mish, you got anything you want to add, brother?
No, it's going into the weekend. Everybody stay safe. Keep an eye on the news. You never know what's going to happen on the weekend anymore.
Amen, brother. Like I said, guys, hard times coming. Stay safe. Be good to your families. Be good to each other. Do something for somebody else. All right? Make those socialists eat their words. All you libertarians, all you freedom-loving, God-fearing, wonderful people out there. And I know most of you guys, some of you guys, I don't need to tell you this. Go do something for somebody else and ask nothing in return. The world will. Karma is funny like that, all right? And then, the next time the socialist says, oh, how come the libertarians never want to do anything to help anyone else? Just ask them, when's the last time they rode a fire engine? Socialists I've met while riding a fire engine. None of them. All right, guys, thank you very much to my Patreon supporters, everything you guys do for the channel. Link down below should you feel so inclined. Thank you to EC660, who just snuck in that super chat right before I was about to sign off. EC660, yes, this is live, and thank you for coming out from under your rock to say hi to us once again, sir. Always a privilege and a pleasure to see you. Guys, have an awesome weekend. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I love you guys. Thank you to my mods and to Mish for keeping things neat and tidy in the super chat. And until next time, live small and dream big.